Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Greg. It's coming to you the day after Independence Day. I was a little too busy to go live, and also I had a chance to do so, but the wind picked up. I wanted to do a broadcast from outside, but the wind got too much, and it would have totally messed up the audio. We do get a lot of wind out here. So the reason that often you see me standing here not saying anything when I first start a video is because I have to wait till I can mute it on this platform here on this computer so that you don't hear those crazy feedback. And that takes a minute before it actually comes up and shows me that I'm live. I know I'm live before it shows me I'm live. That's the crazy thing about this platform or YouTube and the app I'm using. I think it's more YouTube. But in any event, so my friends, I hope you all had a great Independence Day. And I know most of you celebrated that and did so with passion and with your family, as Independence Day typically should be celebrated. Uh, I celebrated Independence Day a little different because this was my Independence Day, at least the 4th of July. I haven't gone to bed yet. So to me, it's still Independence Day, even though technically it is now the 5th of July. And I'm going to open up my chat on my phone here just so that I can connect with community. What? So that I can see who's in the room here and what's being said. There we go. Vegas in the house. All right, very good. So I will come back and go to the chat and go through after I get through with my main message here, and that's important because the people that watch later, they want to get whatever news or the message is first and foremost. So we'll deal with that in that manner. In any event, my friends, hey, we got Rodney Middleton from Australia saying happy 4th. Well, good. I'm glad for that. And also Arlo Schmidt from Canada. All right, very good. So, yeah, we get an international community here. But wherever you are, freedom and independence matters. Now, let me back up what I just said. That this was my Independence Day. I'm actually still living in my Independence Day right now. What I mean by that, the lights, the power through which I am talking to you, the power that's running my Starlink, my computer, everything in this house is now solar. As of the 4th of July, 2025, I was finally able to transition from gasoline generators to the 9 kW solar system that I designed. And I did commit a few of the cardinal sins against solar power, which you're not supposed to do when the sun's not shining. I brewed a pot of coffee, which I checked my inverter out there and I saw it was drawing a kilowatt just to brew the coffee. And I also actually ran a microwave. Yeah, so those supposed to be running microwaves and college, but I have a big solar system, and I have a big, beautiful battery bank. So to steal a little thunder from Donald J. Trump and his big, beautiful bill. I don't know if we'll have time to talk about that tonight. Maybe I'll do that in a separate session on my Swivelhead News channel. Maybe tomorrow or sometime soon. That we do need to talk about that at some point. But there's plenty to talk about right now. Plenty to talk about. Like I said, this is my Independence Day, literally, because now I'm independent from gasoline powered generators. But I have set up a plug, and I've already tested it where I can actually just flip a switch out in my battery building, my solar building, and switch to a gasoline powered generator if I should overuse my batteries, have too many cloudy days, or something like that. Now, I did, like I said, I did commit a cardinal sin. It might be possible that the power in the middle of this broadcast would just go poof, and I'll be gone. So if you see me go poof, I probably just lost power. Now, sometimes YouTube will hold a video and kind of hold if you lose communications, and I might be able to go out and make the switch over, crank up the generator, but I hope not. Because as it is, finally, I should not have to go turn my generator off at night to save a little gas money. So this actually should save me a fair bit of money because it's been costing me north of $500 a month just to run these generators, and that's without including repair. And they require repair all the time, even the brand new ones that I've been getting under warranty from the one I bought, the big Predator, Silent Predator I got from Harbor Freight. Oh my gosh. I'm on my third one. I've replaced, so I got a 9,000, replaced it, got a 9,500, replaced it. Now I'm on another 9,500. No, I replaced that one. I'm actually on my fourth in that series. I had three 9,500s. Yeah, they don't last. For those of you that think that you're going to have generators as your primary off-grid power, forget about it. Just forget about it. That's a nonsensical idea if on a grid down situation. And it might be okay as long as things are running to work. But I got three generators, which might provide a semi long term backup for my solar system at times that it goes down. But you can't count them for long term. No way. Now, what I don't have yet is spare parts to replace some of the parts I got on my solar system out there. For example, I've got two inverters, but they're not redundant. One runs really my wall outlets in the house, and the other runs my lights. The wall outlet one is the one that's the most taxed. It might fail first. I can switch over if I just want to run wall outlets and put lamps up in the house. That I could do. So in a sense, I got some backup. I got three charge controllers because I've got my solar arrays divided into three different banks. I got 9 kW of solar arrays, 3 kW each. I could get by on 6 if one of those come out. But at the same time, I'm planning actually to eventually buy backup stuff. I just can't afford it right now. That stuff's expensive. I might expand my battery bank if we get too many cloudy days. But that's not so typical here in Arizona, except when we get all this snow. Now, my solar array is really huge. I'm going to have to come up with some way to wipe snow off the upper cells out there with a ladder or something from the top end, because it is huge. It is big. So anyway, my friends, I am like I said, celebrating my independence here. So today was working solar, trying to get it into the house here, the final wire and connections, making sure I had a backup, and then some work in the garden and things like that. So I've been busy. I didn't go out and do anything. I might go to a rodeo tomorrow night in Taylor. It's been a while since I've been to a good rodeo, and that's something they like to do out here. 4th of July, Founders Day kind of things, pretty typical, especially Mormon communities. Oh yeah, so I am gardening now. And by the way, I found one crop that I'm already getting produce out of. Yes, I'm already getting produce. I am actually growing jelly beans. Yeah, my garden's full of these. My whole property, apple a bounty crop of jelly beans. Now you wouldn't want to buy these. They're actually quartz crystals rounded like many of the stones here by lots of tumbling over the ways back in the days when this was a beach. I got some, here's some larger ones. I've got some really big ones also. So quartz crystal, lots of it. And some of it is actually in crystalline form. I think this rock here has some crystals embedded in it. Find them. I think there's some that's fair. Well, maybe it's a different rock. Anyway, might have grabbed the wrong one. Oh, there's one right there. You can see it. I can get a little glint off it. You see that crystal in there? Embedded in it. So there are a lot of quartz crystals around. But anyway, this is a magical place for rocks. You know, every color you can imagine, just about it. And some of them are multicolored, like this zebra stone, whatever that is. I don't know what they call it officially, but it's like a zebra. And a lot of petrified wood, like this little piece here. And I find some Indian artifacts around here, little bitty pottery shards and big old hand axe I showed you that made out of quartzite. Anyway, all that aside, we're here to talk about independence. And, growing your own food is a step toward independence. When the grid goes down, you need to be independent yourself. I am living in my bug out location. This is it. I'm going to bug in my bug out. I'm taking this threats to our security very seriously here. And I've made a lot of steps, and things don't happen overnight, especially when you're also working and doing other things like trying to do a YouTube channel. There's just a lot involved that you've got to do. I'm still working my garden out there. Growing a garden in the desert is a huge challenge. It is nothing like growing in a garden in the East. You've got many technical hurdles to overcome. I will do a video. I've done bits and pieces of video on that for some time. As soon as I can get a good video editor reestablished, I will put some of that together and release a video on that. And I'm also going to release a video on my solar system. Everybody's been asking me about solar for a long time, and I will release a video on that. But let's kind of get back to this whole discussion about independence, because we just had Independence Day and it made a good time for fireworks and barbecue. But, a lot of people just seem to not be in the spirit for it these days. In fact, there's some people that was putting out this meme on social media saying that Independence Day has been canceled. Oh, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And that's why I talked about the challenges. There are people that think we should not be celebrating Independence Day. There are people that hate America that live in America right here. And no matter where you live, independence and freedom are important. That's not necessarily the same thing. The independence that we celebrate on the 4th of July in the United States is independence from Great Britain. But our chance to step out of the tyranny of a monarchy. A lot of people like monarchies. Oh my gosh. Or communism. So that's stuff we're going to have to talk about. But I think the key feature was that the people that decided to break away from England had fierce notions about freedom. In fact, a lot of that is because they came here to America to get away from the tyranny they were living under over there, only to have more tyranny imposed on them here. And that is what instigated that little infraction known as the War of Independence. So, all that said, let's see, I might want to read a little bit from the Declaration of Independence, which is a very powerful document written by the founding fathers of what became the United States of America, as of its signing on the 4th of July, 1776. Mind you, the War of Independence started prior to that, with the actual U.S. Army being founded on 14 June, Flag Day. It happens to be Donald Trump's birthday. We just had the 250th anniversary of that. And a year from now, we'll have the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, should we not wind up in a nuclear World War III beforehand. Let's hope not. But anyway, my friends, and, what Thomas Jefferson penned when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and he was guided, was the collaboration with a whole host of founding fathers, but he was the guy who was putting pen to paper, quill to paper, I should say. Anyway, he wrote, of course, the unanimous declaration of 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause or causes which impel them to the separation. And then the very powerful statement: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That was very powerful language to write in the 1700s, my friends. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which originally in the original draft said property. Okay, either way, both, all the above. Hey, Klaus Schwab, House of Klaus, with your, you will own nothing, you'll have no privacy, and you'll be happy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that don't fit with this. That's what some people have trouble with. They just don't like freedom. And that includes people from too many camps. That's what we got to talk about. So what's the value of this stuff, right? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. They get together and agree on it if you got a representative government, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, how many people and how many governments derive their powers from the consent of the government? Of course, it said just powers. That whenever any form of government becomes instructed to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundations upon such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Indeed, indeed. That is revolutionary language. That is in the original founding document of the United States of America. And it wasn't written just for Americans, it was written for people anywhere. So no matter where you live, this is something to take into account. It is something to think of. It is something to consider. And it doesn't say that some people are more equal than others, as in the novel The Animal Farm, which talk about the perils of socialism and communism and some of the things favored by our so-called globalist buddies. I say that facetiously, such as the House of Klaus, which you've heard me not speak too highly of, I would say, in recent times, to put it mildly. So, in any event, what is so wrong with freedom? What is so terrible about these ideas? Yet, kids in our schools, especially in colleges, have been indoctrinated to think America is the most evil country on earth. They'll tell you that. I've been told that by people on Facebook and things like that we are some terrible, horrendous country. Do you believe that? If you believe that, put a 1 in the chat room. If you think America's a great nation and on its way to more greatness, or at least we are a great nation, put a 2 in the chat room. You know, I never said that we don't have problems. We are people. All people have problems. No human being is perfect, and nothing created by human beings is perfect. But I think the form of government instituted by the founding fathers of the United States was about as good as it'll never get in this earthly realm that we live in. Tell me how to top it. Tell me how to top that. Spunky Sugar, don't think we're too great. Okay, but most people are saying 2s. I got a 1, and so far 3 2s. I think the 2s are ahead at the moment. So if you have another opinion, if your opinion diverges, I do believe in the freedom of speech. So have at it. I started an organization called the Freedom Restoration Foundation. So I believe in freedoms. And that's one reason I tolerate certain things that some other channel creators, YouTube creators, don't tolerate a lot of things. Some of them will just ban members for disagreeing with the host. So, but you know what? We can have a discourse as long as it's civil. Keep your language civil in the chat room, or the moderators will take care of you. No cussing. We are a family channel. No cuss words, no dirty language. Just keep it clean and civil, and we can talk about anything we want to talk about in his regards. No requirement to agree with me. Just hear my case and let me know what you think about it. So there we go. Now, back to this whole freedom thing. There were, like I said, there was these people saying that the 4th of July, Independence Day has been canceled. Do not celebrate it. And they were putting this stuff out through social media. They were even suggesting that people that celebrate it ought to be treated kind of like they treated owners of Tesla vehicles, if you know what I mean. I didn't see or hear any evidence of that. I don't know that if it did or didn't happen anywhere, but at least nothing that was newsworthy. So as far as I know, that's the good news. I think these people are in minority, especially given the way the most recent elections went. So I'm saying a lot more 2s. All right, even from my Australian buddy, Rodney Middleton, who's an excellent knifesmith, by the way, master knifesmith, does great work. But anyway, so let's go into this a little bit more. One of the things they cite about that is that America was formed by colonization and slavery. And I have on occasion, on more than one occasion, a few occasions, had people email me and or put messages to posts that I put out on Facebook claiming that the United States oft terminated 100 million Native Americans. There's just a few problems, and I discussed this on another video at some great depth. I won't go into much depth on those points in this video, but I'm going to touch on it because it fits in this whole narrative that America's terrible and we shouldn't celebrate independence because we're a terrible nation founded on terrible principles. So, but okay, let's think about this for a minute. So, no, there was not 100 million Native Americans and what was to become the United States of America. When the English settlers got here, the estimates were most estimates say 2.5 to 7 million people. Although there are some outliers that suggest maybe up to 18 million, but that might have been more. We don't know. We don't have any. They didn't have a census for these people for the Native Americans. And hey, I got a lot of respect for Native Americans. I do, and everybody should. But it's not what a lot of people have been told. And the other thing is that my two oldest kids are card-carrying members of the Chota Cherokee Indian tribe through their mother. And I've dated a lady who's actually officially a member of the Pottawa Band of Indians. I think it's part of the Creek Nation. I may be wrong. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. I drove through the territory in Oklahoma. So they've got area in Oklahoma. In any event, all that aside, the situation is that when Hernando de Soto visited into the Southeast, he and his crew brought a lot of disease with them, measles and smallpox in particular. The tribes that lived in the Southeast at the time were the mound builders, the Mississippian culture. They were actually nations, small nations with kings, not tribal as we typically think of small tribes. The area was highly populated, and they used agriculture, and they had a civilization. They were highly developed people. When the English settlers got here, it was nothing like that. The land was almost vacant, and those peoples have been wiped out. And disease is thought to have been the primary thing, and brought in by the Spanish conquistadors. But De Soto actually didn't conquer anything. He had grand visions of it. He was given, I think, to be governor of La Florida, which might have to the Spanish origin meant this entire region in the southeast, or the southeastern. I'm in the southwest now. Coronado was the first conquistador that came through this area. But De Soto and Coronado and Cortez, all these guys before Pizarro, they brought a lot of disease with them. They were real heavy-handed on the Native Americans, more so even than the English settlers. I'm not saying the English settlers were great and wonderful, but a lot of what happened. See, they only blame them Americans. Nobody is blaming the Spanish or anything in Latin America. Everything goes on Americans because they hate America. You got to remember this. They hate America, especially the socialists and the people who are being schooled by the philosophies that come from the Confucius Institutes and various funding mechanisms that comes from the Chinese Communist Party through colleges in America. And of course, we have our own native communist in this country who want to put out this whole idea that the United States is evil. Now, when the English settlers came here, I say English, there's Dutch and others, and then later a lot of Germans and Scandinavians came in the United States. They didn't come specifically to colonize, to take over and do the nefarious things they're often accused of. And in fact, most of them were trying to get away from a horrendous life they were living in Europe, and persecution in particular, like the guys of Plymouth, they came over for religious freedom. And they established a small little town. They had no big, great ideas of manifest destiny. They were just trying to survive. And America was mostly an empty wilderness at that time. It just wasn't anything like what a lot of people think. It was a lot of open land. And so they were just moving in to try to carve out a new life for themselves. A lot of my ancestors were the Scots-Irish. they were being persecuted by both the Anglican Church in England and the Catholic Church in Ireland, because they were tend to be Presbyterian, and they were highly persecuted. They were discriminated against. They were starving and were having famines, and so they tried to escape that horrendous situation they were living in Northern Ireland. See, there were a lot of Scots got put in Northern Ireland by the English prior to all this stuff, and they wanted out. And so they came here to America, and they moved into the Appalachians, and a lot of them settled in communities with the Indians, with the Native Americans. They were just trying to survive. And in fact, my direct ancestors that came from that lineage, the Allison family, actually, they also scattered up and down the Appalachian chain. But my band, actually, there was a large number of Allisons that formed that formed a wagon train that went from Virginia and the Carolinas down into Northwest Georgia. They were the first white settlers in Northwest Georgia, the very first, and they bought their land at a decent price from the Cherokee Indian and lived among them and interbred with them. In fact, most Allisons, or the old ones, were known for having dark hair, brown eyes, and dark skin, because they had intermingled with the Indians. And so there was, and a lot of Southerners and people across the United States that aren't Indian claim Indian ancestry. So some estimate that there's actually more Indian blood or DNA amongst the certified Indians than there are among them. There's more of it amongst the white and black populations in America. Black people also intermixed with the Native Americans, that there's more Indian blood amongst us. But that doesn't mean they're Indians, because to be Indian, you've got to be part of the culture. And some of the people that actually are part of the culture and live the Indian life, even on the reservations, are maybe more white or some other race than Native American. There's a lot of mixing. And part of the removal of the Indians happened because of, there was a lot of warfare. When you got two cultures that are so dissimilar meeting, they're just not going to get along. And of course, the white people wanted to Christianize the Indians and civilize them, whatever you want to call that. And in fact, in the Southeast, the Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Choctaw, and Chickasaw tribes were known as the 5 civilized tribes, because they lived in houses that plowed with mules. They had rifles. They wore cloth garments. Sequoyah, Cherokee, actually invented a written language for his people. Some of them were doctors, lawyers, plantation owners, slave holders. Oh, yeah, they did that too. They lived just like the white people did. Now, there was a resistance against that, and it was formulated by Tecumseh and his brother. I can't remember his name right off. And they came into this. They were trying throughout the Midwest and the South to foment a revolution against the white settlers, because they feared the white settlers would displace them. And that actually happened, but in part because of what they did. They actually went in and decided to start attacking some of the settlements. In Alabama, the Creek Indians attacked Fort Mims. The the Creek leader of that attack was William Weatherford, a redheaded, Scott-descended Creek Indian. He was a Creek Indian whose dad was Scottish. He was redheaded. And he did this attack on Fort Mims. Why? Well, in part, there's two pieces of this. One, they thought with the War of 1812 that they would side with the British. Well, that was a major mistake for them, siding with the British against what then was Americans. It was no longer English settlers. It was American, as the United States had already formed. And they attacked Fort Mims. Fort Mims had Creek Indians there. It was full-blooded Creek Indians living at Fort Mims. There was mixed, and there were some white people there. It was kind of a mixed base, but it was more mixed race Creeks, and what do they call them? What was the name for that? They called those Creeks. It was TEM. What was that? Anyway, whatever. So it was they were living like white people, and there was this band that William Weatherford represented, known as Red Sticks, which were trying to return the Creeks to their original ways, the original customs, who didn't want any part of the Western or such a European-derived customs, so religion or anything. So the Red Sticks were, trying to fight that off. Now I can understand that, but it's kind of interesting that their leader was a redhead, was Scottish, at least half Scot. And when so this war started, and General Andrew Jackson went to Alabama in the Battle of Horseshoe Bend and fought the Creek Indians there, and he defeated them in this battle. The head chief of the Creek Indians in that battle was Minowa, I believe is the way he says his name. He was also half Scots, possibly also redheaded, half Scot. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But he was half Scot, and he was fighting. I think he was a very educated individual. He was fighting. His dad was a Scottish trader. William Weatherford's dad was a Scottish trader. Minowa's dad was, I think, a fur trader, or whatever the case was. So when the battle ended, Andrew Jackson actually adopted an orphaned Creek boy from that battle. So he wasn't totally anti-Indian, but he was very anti-British. And that the Indians sided with Britain in the War of 1812 really made him mad. That really frosted him. He had a putrid, shall we say, angst against the British, because when he was a boy at 13 during the Revolutionary War, his mom and his brothers were offed by the British soldiers, and he himself was attacked by a British soldier as a boy. The guy took his saber out and cut his hand and his face, which he had scars he carried for that rest of his life. So every time he looked in the mirror, he saw a scar. What that British soldier did, what that guy did is what those guys did to his mom and his brothers. He couldn't stand them, and that's part of why maybe he won so fiercely in the Battle of New Orleans. But it also probably factored in to the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears, which was a tragic, very tragic thing. And I do not condone what happened there. I'm just telling you what some of the background is. So it wasn't all about colonization. It wasn't all about what a lot of people talk about. I mean, each side had their own reasons, is what I'm trying to say. Each side had their own reasons, but it led them into a conflict, at least at some level. Now, like I said, a really civilized tribe, some of them trying to live just among the white people as white people almost. And they were evacuated too. So it was a terrible thing. I did talk years ago to the head of the chief of the Chota Cherokee tribe, which is an Alabama state recognized tribe, but not a federal recognized tribe, because it does have a lot of white mixed members in it. So the case was that he said that Andrew Jackson had a lot of land claims, and that he was looking to profit from that. Could be true. Could be true. I'm not going to argue with that. But what the case was, it was a tragedy how that was prosecuted and the number of people lost on the Trail of Tears. They didn't call it the Trail of Tears for happiness. A lot of Native Americans lost their lives being evacuated to the Indian Territory, which later became Oklahoma. So, but the same tribes that were evacuated by the Southerners that had lived down in this area actually sided in the South with the South and war between the states, which the Union was then mad at them about. So they opened up Oklahoma to settlement, which is mostly settled by Southerners. Kind of weird history there, weird history. But the whole thing is the people that want to make all these bad claims against the United States and our founding are not students of history. Because they say, oh, United States bad, white people bad, that kind of stuff, critical race theory kind of stuff. What they forget is that the Indian tribes fought amongst each other and displaced each other and colonized each other before white man ever got here, and continued to do so as as the United States marched west. You had the Iroquois Confederation, which was very aggressive, displacing other tribes. The Lakota Sioux were actually a woodland tribe that moved into the west. Once they had horses and such and technology to take on the buffaloes, they displaced tribes in the plains. You had the Apaches, who were under attack by the Comanches and the Navajo. The Hopi Indians are kind of stuck on a mesa in the middle of Navajo territory. So there were a lot of tribes that were, this isn't, I'm not trying to justify war. I'm just trying to clean the slate for these people that only Europeans and white people do this kind of thing. These students of history forget. Oh, we got a super chat. The Black Blade. Thank you for all you do, Greg. The vegetables have been great this year. Thank you for your inspiration. Well, Slate to you, thank you for the super chat. And I'm very glad I inspired you to grow things, because that is the road to independence. That is the real road to independence, guys. Like I said, I like Indians. I respect Indians, Native Americans. I got nothing against any of them. That is not my purpose here. And I'm not here to cast dispersions on any race. What I'm here to is just clean the slate against the allegations made against the founders of the United States. It took them to write this, all men are created equal. Nobody else ever said that before. And given that a slave owner actually wrote that himself, created quite a dilemma. He wrestled with that. He had a lot of problems with that himself, but he knew it to be true. And over time, that idea grew. They planted the seed with that idea. It grew, it metastasized and grew. And a lot of people today have a lot of rights they ordinarily would never have had that language not been written. And that became recognized even around the world. So that was maybe the most powerful shot in that war, was just the whole notion that all men are created equal. That, we're all born with the same number of brain cells. We all laugh the same way, no matter where you're from. We all, yes, no. We all cry if somebody dissects us, We're all the same inside, pretty much. Any deviant, anything that's different is usually adaptations to climate that various peoples have lived in over eons of time. So these things have to be taken into account. But people have feelings inside the same way all over the world. And I've had a case that it seems that the one word that's still common amongst languages around the world is mama, or something really close to that, mama. I've asked Native Africans and Chinese and other people, and that word seems to be a common word around the world. So we all have something common in that. We're all humans. And it's a shame that we get pitted against each other to fight each other. But, those that would like to conquer this country, that's what they want to do. They're trying to divide us. That's what they would love to do, is divide us and to cast so much dispersion that we can't honor the founding fathers, that we can't honor our independence. We can't honor the freedom that they so cherished. Freedom. I don't care where you are in this world, you deserve freedom. Also, the language they wrote about, people should have the right to govern themselves as they see fit. How does that fit with the Donbass region in Ukraine, which most of Ukraine is trying to conquer, to take back from the Ruskies? If they or the Crimea, if the people there had a vote, would they choose to be in Ukraine? They already voted, and they said no. Yet we finance a war to have one people take over and subjugate another people that don't want to be part of them. To me, that's morally wrong. I believe all people should have the right of self-determination, including my buddies up in Alberta. Hey, we have another super chat. Lord Dragon the Red. I'm descendant of a Slapoderm tribe, Chief Slapo. Oh. Oh Lord. Anyway, yeah. So, hmm, uh, in any event, my friends, um, the way the cultures met was tragic in many ways. But the people that came over, some people that came to America didn't even want to come here. They were brought as prisoners, like my friends down in Australia. The prison colony that England used was Georgia. And a lot of people in the South and across the United States came over because they were deported against their will to the United States as prisoners. So, everybody didn't come here to we're going to take us land from these guys. We're going to colonize them. We're going to subjugate. That was not the motivation. Who did somebody actually write that and say that? Show me annals and history, chronology where that was stated anywhere. I'd like to see that. That was definitely not the majority opinion or how a lot of people got here. So, and I would assume the same for Australia, very much as it was a prison colony. Now, the funny thing is, I talked about my dad's ancestors coming down and buying land at a fair market value. They purchased a block of land for the Allisons to live on from the Cherokee and lived among the Cherokee peacefully. They just kind of integrated with society. Why not? We're here, they're there. They got along. I mean, the Cherokee agreed to the sale. It wasn't, what a lot of people think. In some areas in this, and I'm familiar with it, and I know Southern history more because I'm from the South, Huntsville, Alabama. The Indians, Cherokee Indians, gave white men Huntsville. They didn't take Huntsville. You can have it because their word for the valley was the Valley of Sickness. Because, it was really bad for hay fevers, whatever, allergies, because there was just so much stuff blooming in that valley that it caused a lot of allergies. And also, thanks to Tennessee River, there was a lot of, back in that day, malaria and things like that, yellow fever. And they didn't, you want a place, take this place. So there were areas like that too, where white people went in and established their settlements initially. So that happened. There was those kind of locations. So, it wasn't all an aggressive take. Now there were definitely areas where white folks were trying to take lands from Indians. Always were once they came over. That's a fact. And it's not a pretty fact, but it's not all of them that did it. A lot of them, intermarried and worked with the Indians and things like that. And some of the Indians stayed in North Carolina. They hid out in the mountains and they formed the eastern band of the Cherokee Nation. Some of the Indians in Alabama weren't deported at all. The Porch Band of the Creeks, Creek Indians, was not a deported tribe, and they weren't part of what the Indians that were removed. And maybe because maybe they favored the Americans in the War of 1812. I don't know. The history of that and the Red Stick movement is very complex. People got removed. It shouldn't, definitely even under that philosophy, shouldn't have been removed. And the whole way the removal was done was horrendous, very horrendous. Make no apologies for that. It was awful, point blank. Now, did everybody in a country know what was going down at the time? I don't know. Probably not. We didn't have internet back then. We didn't have cell phones back then. So, news of what went down, how it went down, I don't know. But in any event, so yeah, the attack on Fort Mims was a slaughter, massacre, and and that's horrified a lot of people and caused a lot of action. But it was, they were attacking other creeks more than anything else. It was kind of a creek civil war in a sense. But what do they call it? That band, the creek Tensaw, I believe Tensaw is what they call them. Tensaw, how they pronounce it, I don't know. That's kind of the way it's spelled. But anyway, guys. So it's a tragic history in that regards. But throughout histories, people replaced other peoples. And when you talk about colonizations and conquest, just look at the Han Chinese people in antiquity. Look at the case with Genghis Khan. people have taken slaves throughout history, not a good thing, but that the Arabic people in North Africa were taking slaves from Europeans. They took a lot of European slaves. Nobody wanted to live on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. That's why America went over and took them on in the Battle of Tripoli, and to stop the Barnaby pirates from what they were doing. And one did something the Europeans didn't have the cojones to do. I got a couple of rocks that look like a pair of cojones. Look at this. Yeah, I got some fossilized Dino rabbit poop from let's say from saber-tooth rabbits, I think. These little round stones, them. No, actually, they're kind of metallic looking. I don't know. I don't think a magnet picks them up though. And then the bigger ones are often known as shaman stones. The bigger round ones. Whoa. Anyway, so got to have a little humor here. But anyway, so we haven't gotten chatter into that so far on this 4th, 5th of July. I can't tell from this. Oh, 84. Okay, from that. All right, so my friends, smash the like button, folks, please. I need all the help I'm getting this platform. And this platform may demonetize this video because the language, but I don't think so, because I'm just citing history and also defending America and founding fathers and people come over here. It wasn't all what's up now. In any group, you're going to get good and bad people. And, I think bad people tend to be sociopaths, and they tend to percolate up in power in any organizations. It happens this very day in companies, government organizations, bureaucracies, especially bureaucracies. So you can see these kind of people getting in power and stirring people up against other people. And one way to get power has always been to stir somebody up against somebody else and then get them to unite behind you. Oh, I got the answers. We'll do this. We'll do it. Now, Hitler did that. Jesse Jackson did that. Lots of people have pulled up that kind of mess. That's one road to power. Tragic, but it's, human nature falls prey to a leader who says they did it. It's their fault. And, then they use that to get money, raise funds, or to attack or whatever, to do awful things in the name of they did it kind of stuff. So that's something we got to watch out for as in humanity, is to try to avoid being played like that. So, but these are sources for troubles. I want to see a world where we don't have such sources for trouble anymore, where we can start getting along and getting together and not having these problems. So, as some of you know, I actually married a lady from Africa, and I've got a mixed race child I love dearly. She's very talented and very smart. And my son married a Mexican girl and had a daughter with her. So, very, very smart, beautiful child. Anyway, so, these are things to take into account. So I do not condone racism. What I condone is freedom. Some people want to say freedom is racist. That is so stupid. Freedom applies to everybody. All men are created equal. Women, I don't know. Everyone should be accorded the basic rights. Everyone, anywhere in the world. And everyone should have the right of self-determination. And that's what we established in the War of Independence against Great Britain, England, however you want to look at it. Everybody should have the right of self-determination. I firmly believe in that. If Quebec wants to go bye-bye, let them go bye-bye. Alberta, hello, Alberta. Alberta is really considering that. And then we got Arnold Smith in the house, who lives in Alberta. Been a very good, long supporter of this channel, so I really appreciate him for all that. So, in any event, Arnold is a good guy. He's been very supportive of me for a long time. So, but it should be self-determined. What do the people there want? Do they not want to be part of the bigger society that, does not do them any favor? Now, see, this is one reason we live in a republic. The founding fathers were students of human nature, students of governments passed. They looked at this stuff. They studied it. What works best for us? And they listened to in England, there were some very good theorists, such as John Locke, writing about freedom before, we got started as United States. About the same time. They were roughly contemporaries. And, you know, that really inspired a lot of our founding fathers. But they went back in history. They looked at the history of Greece. They looked at the history of Rome, what worked, what didn't work. And they discovered that democracies all failed within a generation. Because, when you get a democracy, people vote themselves out of the largesse of the treasury to take over, into bankruptcy. They can't survive. They don't last long. And unfortunately, our republic, through the bureaucracies, has basically been formed into something of a virtual democracy. I mean, there's some people who call us democracy. Those are usually people who are trying to subjugate this country, because in a democracy, you got majority rule. A lynch mob is a democracy, and everybody agrees with the mob except for the guy on the other end of the room. He would be the one who would cast the dissenting vote, of course. And you might say a democracy is a pack of wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. You see what I'm saying? This is why the states have certain rights in this country that are accorded to the states. And so you don't have a tyranny of the majority. And so you still got some reprieve. If you don't agree with this, you got a place to escape to in your states. That's why states' rights and the 10th Amendment and the Constitution of the United States is very vital. Although a lot of your people on the left side of the spectrum, they want to get rid of that's the reason we have the electoral college. They want to get rid of that because they think, well, yeah, with all the people in cities, we will take over the United States permanently and turn it totally blue, and we'll go socialist, communist, or whatever. So there would be a tyranny of the majority. The founding fathers saw that as a threat, and they did not want to go there. Now, the good thing is most republics only last a couple hundred years. And we're on the verge of surviving 250 years, although our status as a republic, given the nature of all the bureaucracies we have, is somewhat challenged, I should say, by the existence of those in those bureaucracies who stay there multi-decades and allow themselves to metastasize and grow way beyond their original purpose, and more to line the pockets of themselves and their friends and bankrupt the federal budget, especially after they created income taxation in 1913. In any event, yeah, 1913. What all happened in 1913? Go back and research that one. Yes, exactly. They thwarted the Constitution. They recreated the National Bank, which Andrew Jackson, one good thing about Andrew Jackson is he got rid of the National Bank. And that's what he claimed on his deathbed was his greatest achievement. He did achieve that. And much to his credit, the United States prospered greatly through the late 1800s and until the point that we came up with this Reserve Federal, which has no reserve and is not even really purely federal. It's a collection of banks. So this whole thing is supposedly it was created in 1913, so we wouldn't have any more depressions. Well, what happened in 1929? How well did that work? And now look how money's been inflated through the policies that they've instigated. Of course, Nixon taking the dollar off the gold standard didn't help at all, did it? Although some people think, oh, it was good. It allows us to have all this more flexibility and blah, blah. Well, it allows for tons of inflation. When I was a kid, I could go into when I was a little kid, I still remember when colas were nickel, as long as you drank it and returned the bottle. A nickel, right out of a vending machine. A nickel. What's a cola now? $1.50. Yeah, see what happened to our money? Yeah. I remember when $100 was a lot of money. $20 was good money. $100 bill ain't worth the 20 when I was a kid. Not even close. More like a $5 bill. Of course, now pennies are worthless, so we're going to have to quit making pennies because our money has been so inflated. Even the zinc in it is worth more than a penny. Texas 4 cents to make a penny. So that don't make any sense. I got to go along with them there for a second. Get rid of the penny. Boy, it's going to make paying odd taxes kind of rough, right? Especially when all the taxes are 9%, it'll probably go to 10%. Oh my gosh. Anyway, just to make change. So my friends, the bottom line is that, our founding fathers had inspiration. When they wrote all men are created equal, that was a profound, very profound thing to write. When they created the Bill of Rights, every one of those things, what they said in the creation of the Bill of Rights was that these aren't our only rights. There's many other rights. That's what they wrote. These are just the ones that they particularly wanted to make sure we protected. And yet the interpretation by the courts and the federal government today is that's the only rights you got, and you don't really have these rights either, and we can do all this, that, and the other. It's all kind of loopholes, and they find all, they make Swiss cheese out of them. Our courts are as guilty as anything else. It's a shame what we've gotten to here in the United States of America. But we're still the bastion of freedom for the world, supposedly. If you think it's bad here, you go to Europe and look at, you don't have freedom of speech. Of course, they wanted to take that away from us here. One of the problems the big, beautiful bill is it really didn't codify freedom of speech like it should have. Maybe the next bill will. You got to remember, they had to have 60% of Congress to go along with this bill. And it's big. It's a big, beautiful, bloated bill. Almost 1,000 pages, 940, I think, actually. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. So, but the main thing I wanted to go into here was to talk and cast some dispersion on those that say America's evil. Look, we're a country of people. We don't agree with each other. That's okay. But we do have an elected process, a legislative process. We are a republic. Now, there's people who want to break all that. And maybe nefarious things have happened along some of these steps I talk about. I gotta be very careful. There's some things I can't talk about on YouTube. Literally, they will my channel. But in any event, I think you get the gist is that we have challenges to our freedom today. Big challenges. When some young people think that we should cancel Independence Day, that's a problem. When they throw all this dispersion on our founding fathers, I got an issue with that. When they just throw all this dispersion on the concept of this country, when you look at freedom and the concepts, we are accommodating the people that's in this country now. Even though at one time we weren't so accommodating, there were people that, wanted to do nefarious things to other people, like the American Indians, the American natives. That just changed. That has changed. It may not be perfect, but it's not as bad as it was. Because of the principles of freedom established in the Bill of Rights, from the Declaration of Independence. These apply to all people. All people are created equal. Who else lives by that? Now, most of these people who throw dispersions at us, a lot of them think, well, yeah, China's got the idea. They don't look over and see what they're doing to the Uyghurs. They don't look over and see how they treat Tibetans. Think about it. They're not looking at these issues over there. Organ harvest, political dissenters of consciousness. Oh yeah, there's been word out that I'll probably cover this in a future video. There's going to be, they're building new hospitals in Xinjiang, the region of the Uyghurs, which should have been East Turkmenistan, that the non-colonizing CCP took, like they took Tibet. But only Americans are colonizers. Only Europeans are colonizers, they tell us. What about the 9-dash line? And you know what the latest from China is? Get this. What's the latest on their social media? Anything on social media that's allowed to be posted, anything that the CCP don't agree with goes poof, they don't allow it to be posted. But there is a wild, viral thing going around in social media of China. And that wild, viral thing is that the United States should belong to China. Why? They don't say no, all the rest of them are just the United States. Why? Because they had Native Americans here, and they claimed the Native Americans were Chinese. Never mind. Their ancestry was from Siberia. They are an Asiatic descended people, but they're not Chinese any more than the Koreans or the Japanese. Mongolians. They're more related to Mongolians than they are to Chinese. And even though China likes to claim the history of Genghis Khan, he was not Han Chinese. So, and he was a conqueror himself throughout history and prehistory. As long as there's been nations and powerful tribes, peoples have been conquering each other. Look at what the Aztecs did to so many other tribes in Mexico, and somewhat the Mayans too. They weren't exactly peace-loving peoples, as we're often told. What do they do to people on top of those pyramids? It's heinous. Heinous. Tragic. A lot of innocent people. You ever see the movie Apocalypto? Mel Gibson produced? You should check that movie out. So, okay, some people are up for the coming of a Black Friday here tomorrow, not Saturday. Or get that from the Black Blade. I'm going to read the chat room in a minute. So that's the bottom line, is that freedom matters. And freedom should apply to all people around the world. Hey, you know what? You know who I think some of the most lovely people in the world is? The pygmies in Africa. They have this polyphonic songs of singers running through the forest and jungles. Beautiful music that they sing. And they got to have some beauty in their souls to sing that. But they have been very mistreated by the Bantu peoples in Africa very much. So I hope that stops. Because the pygmies are beautiful people. They're short, but still, I think if you listen to that polyphonic music they sing, they got a beautiful soul inside them, somewhere in there. But we're all humans. None of us are perfect. No human is perfect. No society is perfect. But the idea that we have inalienable rights, that's as close as it gets. And that they apply to all people, the right of self-determination. We forget that. Now we say, okay, this place was a nation because it was cast as a nation, therefore that boundary is holy and can't be violated. That's such nonsense. Total nonsense. Yeah, that's what the globalists want you to think. That's what they want you to subscribe to. And that allows for subjugations of peoples in other countries around the world, including in Europe. How about the Basque? Ask them what they want to be. Now, unfortunately, Putin now, seems like he wants more than just the Donbass region. He wants all of Ukraine. No, he shouldn't have all of Ukraine. But it's not our business. It's not our war. But I don't believe he should have all of Ukraine. But that's a European problem. The Ukrainian people have some bad blood there. You ever heard of Holodomor, where they were starved to death by Stalin? But then Stalin was real heavy on his own people, too. Very heavy. And see, it's something a lot of the people that love communism want to ignore. What did Pol Pot do to his people? Mao Zedong, what did he do to his people? Horrendous. Of course, communism can only survive in a one-party state. And one-party systems are terrible anywhere there. But communistic, authoritarianistic societies are horrible. Everybody's trying to get out of them, except for the American students who think they're smarter than everybody, and certain liberals in this country who think that this is the way to go. I'm intellectual, so this is what to do. What? How about going and look at these other societies that you so cherish, and look how everybody's trying to get out. Even California. Only people want in California is people the undocumented immigrants that they're welcoming them in by paying them lots of money, shelling out money to them, giving them houses, giving them preferential treatment over veterans. Yeah. Anyway, I just saw a report that said that California would succeed from the union by 2035. Bye-bye. You want to go? Right of self-determination? Bye-bye. Anyway. I think a lot of counties in California would not want to be part of that. They would want to break off from the state. Phoenix might want to go with them here in Arizona. In that case, that northern Arizona would be independent. I doubt Phoenix is going to go to California, but just in case, it does lean. Your big cities lean left everywhere, pretty much. Huntsville is now the biggest city in Alabama. It's got a Republican mayor, and the reason it's the biggest city is it's got a Republican mayor, and it's very prosperous. Look at once you go around the country and look at what party they have for mayors and how the city's fared over the years. Birmingham, crash. It's an awful place now. Anyway, and I cite places in Alabama because that's my origins. But I'm glad to be in Arizona now. This is a beautiful state. It's got a lot of beautiful people here. I got a lot of good neighbors around here. I'm happy to be here. I love Alabama too. It's just I got a good bug out location here. And I got property. The property's paid for. So, and just anybody can't drive by my place. You can't drive by this property at all. You got to go down a long, difficult road to get here. And this is the only destination on this road. And so I know you're coming. Nobody comes here unless they're invited by me. Nobody comes here, and that's a good thing. My house in Alabama, and all kind of people passing by, passing through, walking across the property. Oh my gosh, it's horrible in that regard. So, in any event, guys, independence. Now, if you want your own independence, like I said, this is my Independence Day. I'm off grid, and now I don't have to buy gasoline unless it's just a backup proposition. Wood gas might be sufficient for that down the road, or I could live without being on power. If the grid's down countrywide, nobody's going to be watching the internet. It's not many. So if my power and communications are spotty or non-existent, then it's that way for everybody. I will probably have some version of power as long as my components that I bought hold up. That's another thing to see. We'll need to work on that, but the ability to grow food, I'm working on that. Definitely working on it. I'll show some videos on that. It's a new experience for me. Growing food in the desert is very different, a lot more difficult, very different and very difficult, but doable. And I will learn the techniques of gardening in the desert, and I will share them with you as we do this. And I will reestablish worms here. Now, I'm not probably won't sell them the same way I used to, unless I get some good solid colleagues to work with me on that. I think I got a person or two suggesting they might be willing to do that. But right now, I'm planning to keep it small. I don't want to do anything more than I can handle myself, unless I got a real solid colleague I know to work with. Then I might expand it. So that's how we're going. I just got to get water up there. I dug the trench to put water out to where I'm going to raise the worms. So that trench, I'm going to lay a water line in. I've got a 3,000-gallon tank out here. I'm having water hauled in, and I'm developing rainwater collection. And we built 4 little dams on my property here in the last week to collect rainwater into little ponds. I'll show you all that in the days to come. But I just wanted to share with you the value of freedom and kind of disperse this whole America bad, therefore freedom is bad and everything's bad. Take it upon yourselves to talk to young people and try to bring them out of that. Or anybody that thinks that way, try to bring them out of that. It's hard to crack people's worldview and get them to see things different, but it's doable. I know that because when I was in high school, I saw things as they saw them pretty much, and I've outgrown that. But some of them are actually adults, unfortunately. But we are turning this country around, I think, toward a better disposition, maybe not without challenges. As you see, I am pretty much a libertarian leaning individual, and I do not like warfare. But you have to defend yourselves. And we do have a big challenge coming at us in China. And we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. And that's most unfortunate. We can't just roll over and close our eyes and put our head in the sand and expect them to go away. It's like I said, they are claiming that the United States is Chinese, just like the 9-dash line. They claim the whole South China Sea. They'll do that with everybody everywhere eventually if they get the chance. And I've shown you how they could actually do it if we don't have our worries about us, how they can develop robotics, even lab-grown people. Yeah, that's all in their program. I've shown you how it could actually be done in previous videos. I've shown you how they could EMP this country, sneak EMP attacks with balloons, amongst other things, of course, not satellites. So, freedom has got challenges, but the best way to deal with those challenges is to believe in freedom and spread the word for why it's important. And it's not something that just belongs to any one people, any one world. It belongs to everybody. Freedom is for everyone. The right of self-determination is for everyone. If California wants to go bye-bye, bye-bye. Don't let the door hit you on your way out of the union and the rear end on the way out. If Alberta wants to join the United States, and if they first break away from Canada, that would need to be the internal affairs between them and Canada, and then join the United States. Hey, it'd be great to have Alberta. Or, I don't think the United States ought to absorb all of Canada. It's a little bit too far to the left. They can join California. So, in any event, Alberta, that's a great province. Great people up there, like our good friend here, Arnold Schmidt. I don't know what he thinks about that separation in business, trying to join the United States. I don't know what he thinks about that. But, I said, if they want that, if they vote for that, by self-determination. What's wrong with self-determination? Huh? What's wrong with self-determination? How is that so bad? That's how this country got started. And yet we want to say it's not a good thing for everybody else. Boulder Dash. That's horse pucky. Freedom is valuable. All right, I'm gonna look at the chat room now. So for the guys in the mornings, drinking the coffee, I've covered the stuff that I most, my points that I wanted to make have been made. It is late for me. It's 3:12 in the morning here, my time. So I'm not going to keep banging on this stuff. Okay, we got Alice Vanderbergen. She is in, I believe you are in California. Marsh Rabbits. I don't drive down to Yucatan. Oh, that would be a nice drive. Just got to hope the drug cartels don't mess with you. I just got to hope it's safe. And that's a sad thing when you got to worry about safety anywhere in the world. We should all be able to drive anywhere. Maybe you got to get a visa. We don't want just people that come in this country has got nefarious intentions, and no other country shouldn't want to have to deal with that either. But, if you don't have nefarious intentions, you're a tourist. In any country, it stands to gain from tourism. There's money to be made from that. So it'd be nice if we could. I'd like to be able to drive down through the entirety of the American highway, go all the way down to Argentina, Patagonia, Chile. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Maybe one day we can do that. What's that? Dorian Pass, though. It's not a road. The highway is discontinued there. It's just a a jungle you got to go through. But anyway, so I'm gonna look briefly at the chat here. Arnold, Rodney, Sasquatch Moon, good to see you. Spunky Sugar saying happy 4th. Good. Yeah, my 4th of July was awesome because I got my independence. And so far, my batteries haven't kicked on. Like I said, I did 2 cardinal sins. I brewed a cup of coffee, a pot of coffee, and actually microwaved my own little meal here. I got a refrigerator running, a fan running, some lights, and then my power hadn't kicked off yet. So I don't think it will. Juanita's in the house. Jerry Gamble, good morning, Greg. God bless you and everyone else. Oops, I hate it when I try to scroll through here and you're using the thumb that wants to take actions. I'm just trying to scroll. Anyway, I broke down. Juanita says, I broke down crying today. Think of all the men and women who gave their lives for our freedom and how the evils of the world are trying so hard to take away our freedoms. It's very profound. Yes. My granddad fought in World War One. My dad was in World War II. My brother was in, my older brother, who's passed away, was in the military during the Vietnam War. I had a couple uncles. I had uncles in the Korean War and the Vietnam War. I went in the Army just about 3 years after the Vietnam War era was over. There was still all Vietnam era stuff. I almost got sent to Iran. The unit I was in after I left it went to Grenada. Actually, I tried to stay in the unit. I would have went to Grenada if I'd have done that. Let's see. Yeah, when things are changing fast. That's why I'm doing this video. So I'm trying to talk about the value of freedom. I'm trying to take the air out of the arguments against it. They are arguments built on a false foundation that does not look at history with a sense of reality. That's what I'm trying to bring here. I'm not saying what happened was good, no, but what I'm saying is that, in terms of displacement of the Native Americans. But on the other hand, what I'm also saying is that, it is what it is. And now it's up to us to make the best out of what we got going forward. And casting dispersion on the document that grants us freedom is not the way to go, because those freedoms are precious everywhere. And a lot of the allegations they make just flat are not true. Especially, it's just been the history of humanity. It's not been pretty. And we're not being pretty today because we still have war. This is a problem. We have not overcome as a species. We are a warlike species, unfortunately. We got to find a way around that. My great grandmother was full Cherokee. I'm half Cherokee and half Irish. Okay, Spunky Sugar, good to hear that. Great grandmother had 21 children. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. I had a great uncle that had 20 kids. My great grandfather Allison had 20 kids. 18 of them grew up. He had two wives. One of them didn't survive the whole thing. So he had 10 kids by one wife who passed away bearing a child, and then he had 10 kids by another wife. My great grandfather was born of the second wife. He was born during the War of Northern Aggression. He was a year old when federal troops were burning up his region in northwest Georgia. Now, his older three brothers, who were not slave owners, did fight for the Confederate Army. So, whatever that is or is not worth to you, that's just the facts. Come, Jesus, come, says Juanita. Amen. Nodding or shaking their head is pretty much where we're at. Yeah, we're on the same inside, pretty much. We got to quit fighting. We can't do the technologies we're developing. We won't survive as a species if we don't find a way out of this mess. There's Prepper. How you doing? Marie from Northwest Florida. I know. Are you in the Panhandle? I see a lot of people think that should be part of Alabama. All right. My parents took us out of country when we were teenagers. Well, it's good to see the greater world. Yeah, and that would be good for more young people. Maybe they'd see how people in other countries live, and it may not be so glorious as they think. There's some beautiful countries. I've been to other countries, and actually my favorite trip of all was to Moscow in March of 2010. I stood in the streets of Moscow, and I looked around the people in the area. I said, why would we want to nuke this place? And I looked at the people and I said, well, why would they want to nuke us? Person to person, no. It's the governments, the bureaucracies, the war hawks, the Lindsey Grahams and his buddies. Guten Morgen, Rodney. Hey, Marsh Rabbits, where are you from? Guten Morgen, auf Deutsch. Marsh Rabbits. Guten Morgen. How about Morgan and Morgans? That's another way to say it, right? Ich spreche Kleindeutsch. I mean, don't speak any German. What's the crowns do? That's a new one to me, guys. I'm seeing these crowns, and what are the crowns? Crown number 3. 8 p.m. here. Wow. Cheerful Hector. 8 p.m. Are you cheerful, Hector? Andrew Jackson lived in the Hermitage about 10 miles away from my house. Okay, Jerry Gamble. Very good. Yeah, I had a cousin that lived close to the Hermitage. And she actually bought most of my worm farm, her and her husband. So, but the people that moved it really messed it up for them. So they're hoping to get a start. Brian Perendi, how you doing? You're up late. You're getting up early. I don't know which one it is. Brian. Brian's been a big supporter. Jerry, I like Huntsville and Madison, Alabama, Mr. Gregg. Oh, yeah. Beautiful areas, growing like crazy. I bought a place out in the country and the city caught up to me. I mean, I was like 14 miles out of town. Next thing I know, I got city all around me. But it's it's a good town, really. So Arnold says Albertians and other Western provinces are sick and tired of all the economic and political abuse from the Eastern Providence. So we will demand equality and fairness from Ottawa. If nothing changes, we'll leave. There you go. Being fruitful and multiplying is what God's blessings were intended, not this abortion, which is totally anti-Christian behavior. No wonder America's so messed up and Canada's worse off. Yeah, well, they've got this all across Western societies. Yeah. At A to Z, the term limits were done after Roosevelt's presidency. Yeah, that's true. That is true. And it's mainly because of Roosevelt. Halo. Good morning. Hey, Marsense. Halo. Hang a rocket from a balloon and off we go. Okay. We've been going now for 81 minutes, which makes for a long video. Georgia's where we're from originally. Okay, Spunky Sugar. Georgia. My dad was a Georgia cracker. He was born in Georgia. So we call it Georgia. Yeah. So, why Trump's tariffs aren't really reciprocal. Donald Trump has chosen to impose a wide range of different tariffs on other countries. But how did he come up with the figures? It varies and he changes them based on negotiations. But his idea is to have a baseline tariff of about 10% as a way to offset some of the income tax we've had in this country and bring in other revenue and establish more of an equal playing field. A lot of these other countries have other trade restrictions against our goods. So hopefully it will increase manufacturing in the United States. I go to Walmart, I look around, and the prices of just about everything are the same they were back when I got here in November. Just looking at some of the things I got in there. The price of gas has not gone up since then. So, all this claims of all the inflation is going to cause have yet to materialize. So that's the good news. And yet we are putting money in the federal coffers. And those are citing the so-called size of the Congressional Budget Office, the deficit, the big beautiful bill was going to invoke, aren't taking that into account. There's many other factors to bring into that. That bill's got some good things, some things are not so good. We'll talk about that in the future, probably over on my Silverhead News channel. There's a little more political I want to get here. So if you want to send, Ronnie says, so if I want to send you stuff, I use your Snowflake P.O. box. No, not really, because I have to check it every week. I got a different box up in Sholo that I use for people sending me packages. Rodney, you're on my Facebook. Just instant message me on Facebook and I'll send you the address. The post office in Sholo closes at 4 every day. It's hard for me to get there. And they are not open on Saturdays, unlike the one in Tony used to be. So it's hard for me to get to them. And they won't keep a package over 5 days. If you don't go and get that package, they send it back. I have had a package from one of my followers here sent back. Two others sent me something. They actually sent it back because I couldn't get in there fast enough. I had other things, and it's just hard for me to get down there before 4 o'clock. It's a half-hour drive away. So I go to a place that's an hour drive away, which will hold stuff indefinitely. It's open to 6:30 and open part of the days on Saturdays. I got the snowflake PO box just for bills and regular mail, but all my packages I send to Sholo, which is about an hour's drive away. Yeah, just send me a message and I'll on Facebook and I'll send you the address. So anyway, guys, I really appreciate. Yeah, he sent me some really nice knives, which I'll have to show you again sometime soon. Like I said, he's a master bladesmith. So you should see Rodney's work. If you're on Facebook and a friend of his, he does post some of that stuff on Facebook. Some of those beautiful knives he makes all the time. Anyway, my friends, well, we've run long here. Like I said, we're now up to 85 minutes. People in the morning won't want to watch the video if it gets too long. So with that, I won't have to say it's time to go. It's my Independence Day here. I haven't gone to bed yet, so for me, it's still Independence Day. It's like, 3:30 in the morning. I did want to be in bed before this time. So I want to thank you super chatters tonight. Thank you for that. Oh, I forgot I need to check PayPal. I'll never know when Kim Possible's in the house. Let me see if she don't always chime in the chat room. But if she's in the house, she'll send a donation to me. She always has. So I'm going to check PayPal, make sure no one has sent me anything there. Nope, not today. Well, but it is really late. It's the 4th of July, so I totally get that. So I want to thank all you super chatters. Salute to you. I want to thank mods for keeping the channel decent. And I want to thank everybody for watching, for participating. We're family. It just means we're living in challenging times. There's a lot of people that don't like our country. They want to pull us down from so many different directions, and including people inside our country. Hopefully we can educate some of them, get them out of their mind funk they're in. But some of them are so set in it, there's no hope. But, but you can always try. I have had a person too that's on the other side of the aisle starting to see my points I'm making. So, you keep making them, some folks might see it. Anyway, so I'm just going to say again, thank you all for watching. And I hope everybody here in the United States had a great 4th. Hope everybody that's watching has a great weekend, wherever you are. So as typical, what I like to say to all my watchers and all my viewers is to one and all, have a good night, good day, wherever you are. And, that comes out of the night before Christmas. That's why I often end with, oh, green giant. See the Santas. Anyway, thank you again for watching. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up on the way out if you're not